Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaii are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo, and by Carl Smith Ball, providing legal services throughout Hawaii and the Pacific since 1857, making a positive difference in the communities where we live and work. On the next Insights, we continue our election 2024 coverage. We turn our focus to West Oʻahu as both Senate District 22 and House District 45 are open with no incumbent. These two districts include many of the same neighborhoods, including Waiʻanae, Nanakuli, and Mākaha. Join us as we talk to the candidates in the general election for these two legislative districts. Next on Insights.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. We start tonight with the candidates for State Senate District 22, which includes the communities of Nanakuli, Maili, Waiʻanae, and Mākaha. With the newly appointed state senator for the district not seeking re-election, the seat has been left open. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call in your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii YouTube page. Now to our guests. Representative Cedric Gates is the Democrat candidate for District 22. He's a lifelong Waiʻanae resident. He is currently serving as the state representative for House District 45. Before serving in the state legislature, he was the chairman of the Waiʻanae Coast Neighborhood Board. And Samantha DeCorte is the Republican candidate for Senate District 22. She's a Maili resident and has served as a chair of the Nanakuli Maili Neighborhood Board. In 2022, she ran for State Senate District 22, losing by only 40 votes. Since then, she has worked as the chief of staff for Senator Brenton Awa. And I think I'm going to bounce both of you off. You know, you cannot start this show, be from Waiʻanae, without thinking about the terrible tragedy this weekend. I'd like to invite both of you. First, I want to express my condolences to all the folks in the district. This has been a brutal week for them. But starting with you, Samantha DeCorte, what would you like to say about this tragedy to the people who are in your community?
You know, our community is very heavy-hearted right now, and what we need first and foremost is prayers. Prayers to the family, prayers to those that are involved, prayers to efforts that have been made to help to mitigate these kinds of situations. But, you know, these families, they need time to heal, and the children, when they're ready, the families, when they're ready, we're going to be ready to provide them with the resources when they are ready. But for right now, we're just asking for prayers.
Cedric Gates, I mean, what's your perspective on what happened, and what would be your message for the district?
You know, first off, condolences to the Ohanas, all involved, and you know, the kids especially who are lost without a mom, and all of the families that are just impacted by this tragedy. My first instinct is we have to stop the violence. We have to figure out ways as a community to de-escalate situations so that they don't arise to this level of violence. We have to learn how to talk it out, ho'oponopono, and that's how I was taught. And that's what I'm hoping will come out of this, is that nothing is worth taking another resident's life, and the impact that the loss of these residents have is insurmountable and unmeasurable.
Samantha DeCorte, on that, what is the heavy lifting that needs to happen here? I mean, this is the latest in a whole season of fatalities and shootings.
Yeah, you know, already, Daryl, this year, 9 people have been shot and killed, and something is happening out here, and we're doing everything we can, from pushing for more cops to even talking with criminals about this particular topic. So, I mean, our community has all hands on deck, and we're doing everything that we can.
What have you learned from these conversations?
I mean, I think in a situation like this, you know, with the limited resources that we have on the Waiʻanae Coast, you know, I've been a strong advocate to completing the Waiʻanae Police Station, but also the state, they formed an agency, Department of Law Enforcement. Right now, their priority is cracking down on fireworks, but we need them to start cracking down on the ghost guns and start pushing that effort in that way.
Some specifics, Cedric Gates, what do you think specifically needs to happen? I know there's been a lot of community meetings, as Samantha DeCorte mentioned, and a real complaint about the lack of police resources. What do you think are the specific things that need to happen?
So first, as a legislator, I've put in a lot of effort to try to curb this type of violence, but also to increase the resources we have on the Waiʻanae Coast. I actually introduced and helped pass the Department of Law Enforcement legislation that we now utilize to run our department. And our goal for that was to have additional officers that we can assign to the city to help curb the behavior that we're seeing in hotspots across our state. I've also passed legislation that imposes a 5-year minimum for anyone caught with ghost guns. But on top of that, we've collaborated with the city, state, and federal government to make sure that we are all coordinated in our effort to tackle illegal guns, gangs, and organizations that may be operating outside on the west side of the Oahu.
Samantha DeCorte, I'll give you the last word on this. We actually only have like 20 minutes, so I want to move along to other issues, but please, anything else you'd like to add on the crime issue in particular?
No, I think what was said was said. You know, we have a short amount of time. There's so many things that we want to discuss here tonight, so I would suggest maybe moving on to a different topic.
Cedric, I'll ask both of you, what do you think are the top 1 or 2 issues in your district beyond crime now that we've talked about that need to be addressed?
It has to be our city parks and beaches. The amount of houseless folks that have overtaken our beaches and parks have been the #1 complaint I receive going door to door, talking with our community. And they think it's a state issue, but it's under the city and county of Honolulu. So that's Mayor Blangiardi, that's Councilmember Andrea Tupola. Those are the folks that we really need on this issue to address. But on top of that, our transportation issues still remain a top priority because it shouldn't take us 2 hours to get from home to work and vice versa, and we need to change that.
Let me just focus in on homelessness a little bit. I mean, I know that there are kauhales going up, there's lots of programs out there, but as you say, in the last couple of days that I've been driving back and forth, it seems like the homeless are back fully on the beaches again.
Correct. So I have legislation that I've introduced but haven't been able to pass it yet. But it would be like a 3-strike for houseless folks that are taking over our parks and our beaches. So the first one would be a warning, second a citation, third is either you're going to a kauhale or ohana zone or you're going to jail. And we have to really stick a carrot to this because our community deserves to be able to use our public spaces. And if you hear from our residents, they're finding needles, they're finding ice pipes, they're finding really hazardous material out there in the community. So we need to take action on it.
On homelessness, what's your position?
Yeah, you know, I wish it was just as easy as getting a house out there and putting them in the house. But really with our houseless community that's in our public spaces, I mean, we really have to make the time to build relationships with them. I would definitely help to fund the nonprofit organizations that have been out on those beaches for years, collecting data, collecting information, helping them to get their documents, helping them to get jobs. So it's not just about putting them in a home, it's about a rehabilitation. We really have to address the mental health issues and the resources that have been lacking. Not only is drugs a factor, but trauma. I mean, there's so many issues, and we have to have a multi-pronged approach in order to really remove this from our public spaces and get our beaches back.
What do you feel, though, is the core issue that's creating so many homeless that does seem to be moving more toward the west side for some reason? Yeah,
well, I mean, we see it every day, you know. We see our homeless community that is not even from Waiʻanae. As a matter of fact, most of them aren't even from Hawaii. So we really need to address that. Those programs that are paying for houseless communities in other states to come to Hawaii and to be in our public spaces. So again, this is a multi-layered approach, but first things first, we got to work with the people that have been on the ground.
You know, so Representative Gates said that transportation was another issue. I haven't given you a chance to say, what are your top 1 or 2 issues on top of crime that we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, transportation definitely, but also our public school education. We continue to lack the resources that we need for the proper curriculum. Our schools half the time are on lockdowns. Nanakuli and Waiʻanae High School most of the time are on lockdowns. We need...
Why is that?
Well, just because of fights. So what happens is because we're lacking the security resources in our schools, schools, whenever a fight breaks out, they have to shut the school down. And kids have to stay in their classroom. And, you know, that really is not a healthy approach for our kids to be in school, seeing it on lockdown half the time.
Is it a resource issue primarily?
It is, yeah. It's a staffing issue, it's a funding issue, it's a resource issue.
Let me give Representative Gates, on education, what do you feel are the challenges that need to be overcome? I mean, you've been in the legislature, you know, is Waiʻanae adequately funded? You know, it's a statewide school system. They're supposed to be adequately funded.
For sure. That has been one of my biggest investments I've made since being in the legislature is to our schools. The state directly oversees our schools, so having that type of support, whether it's building our new stadium for Waiʻanae High School with the brand new track or the girls athletic building, also Sea Rider Productions building their new building. We're trying to increase the type of services and technology that we deploy in our schools because we know we need to change with the times and we can't continue to do what we have been doing in the past.
Is the DOE asking for enough money, and is the legislature providing enough money to schools on the West Coast?
Well, the DOE takes up majority of our budget at the state level because the state oversees all of the public schools across all islands. And with that being said, resources obviously has been an issue, but also getting the work done. I like the way the UH system has moved on repair and maintenance projects where it's design build, and that helps alleviate the processes that needs to take place for like my field. It should have been built 3-4 years ago, but because it has to go through 3PP loops, environmental hoops, all of those things take time and end up costing the state a lot of money and delays the projects from actually getting done.
In terms of housing, there's a number of times that housing has been proposed out there that it gets shot down because people don't like it in their neighborhoods. What is the solution for the housing issue out there?
Well, the reason it's getting shut down is because it's not catering to the local market. We're catering to outside purchasers, whether that be from outside our community, outside of our state, or outside of our country. And so what we really need to do is start putting safeguards around people that are allowed to purchase property here in Hawaii. And so, of course, in the Senate, they tried to push a bill to stop foreigners from purchasing in Hawaii, and that got shut down for political reasons. But 41 other states have some sort of restrictions on foreign ownership, so we need to start there. How
do you do that and make it legal, though? I think the argument was it's not legal to do
Right. Well, I think the term was it's not constitutional. But again, I'm going to repeat myself. 41 states have some sort of foreign ownership restrictions, so we have to do something. I wouldn't even, support a development that was coming into my neighborhood, only driving up more prices for our people to get priced out and they have to move. I mean, we're in a real threat here of losing not only our local people, but our Native Hawaiian people as well.
You might add something to that?
Yeah, for sure. I support also stopping foreign investments or limiting foreign investments into our state. Our housing market and cost of living have been the #1 issue when it comes to houselessness. How do you afford a $2,000 a month unit when you're making $15 an hour? And this is the reality for many of the residents, especially from my community, where we have an underserved low-income community. So we have to really invest as government into infrastructure so that we can develop properties at a lower rate that then can be passed on to the user, the end user, which is our residents, so they can continue to afford to live here.
You know, one of the things that did pass this year from the legislature was giving the counties more power to restrict short-term rentals. How big of an issue are the short-term rentals in your district?
You know, they're not a really big issue, but I kind of want to pivot the conversation back to housing because Senate District 22 has the largest Native Hawaiian homestead population in the state, if not in the world. So if we kind of prioritize getting our waitlisters onto their properties and into their homes, I mean, again, we're not looking at our district and see what will benefit them the most. And right now, the DHHL got a really big lump sum of money from the state, and they're running out of that money very soon. They're going to be coming back to ask for more, but we need to be more accountable to where these funds are going and how we're actually housing.
Was some of that money targeted to the west side?
When you say the west side, yes, in West Oʻahu, but not in the 96792. So there's a few properties that they were looking at. Voice of America is one of them. That could have provided a lot of homes for waitlisters that live in Waiʻanae.
I don't know, where's Waitlist America? Which,
Voice of America, it's a property in Maʻili.
okay.
It's DHHL owned, but you know, for whatever reason, they're not building over there. So they are building Kapolei, they're building in those areas. But if we have DHHL land in 96792, we should build there. People want to live there.
Are you supporting also more housing built out there?
Yeah, for sure. I was also in the legislature and helped advocate part of the Native Hawaiian Legislative Caucus for the $600 million that we allocated along with the Kalima settlement. With that being said, I've proposed Nanakuli, Waiʻanae as being a targeted location to develop DHHL homes because that's going to keep our residents here. If you think about, as Samantha mentioned, we have the largest Native Hawaiian community. And as a local resident myself, knowing that we can house these people with state money is where I want to put a lot of the attention and support. And we've done that. There are projects in the works right now.
Okay, starting to get some questions from viewers, and we want to respect those. Basically, we started with violence. I'll start with that. With all the violence, this is a question for Monica. With all the violence, particularly gun violence, would you be in favor of even tougher gun laws than we already have? Representative Gates, you want to start that?
Yes.
You mentioned the ghost guns thing. Anything else?
Correct. Yeah. So for starters, passing that legislation to try to curb ghost guns has been a priority for me, and we've done that. Moving forward, looking at ways that we might have to implement some mandatory minimums just to show the severity and seriousness that we're taking to gun violence in our community. And hopefully it deters these folks from carrying, but also keeping a pathway for legal folks to continue to have their Second Amendment rights, which I fully support.
What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, it is our constitutional right, you know, and we are not looking for the good guys with guns. We're looking for the bad guys with guns, and we're looking to crack down on all kinds of guns, illegal guns, ghost guns, I mean, guns that we don't even know about. And again, the Department of Law Enforcement, which right now is prioritizing fireworks, we need to redirect their efforts and crack down on ghost guns.
Let me just ask this question because it occurred to me, the police just the other day announced that the guns that Hiram Silva used in his rampage were all not registered. Yet he was known for firing off the guns on his property, and I'm sure that do people even call in when they know their neighbor has an illegal gun? I mean, are people active in community policing in that way, or is everybody kind of like, what do you
yeah,
think
no,
about that?
I mean, I'll say our community is very active. I mean, we're not afraid to call the enforcement. We're not afraid to dial 911. But what happens after that? You know, so you can only call 911 so many times before nothing is being done. Police can only arrest the criminal so many times before it gets kind of exhausting. So there's different ways, I guess you could say, about actually getting to the root of what's happening. But our community is not afraid to get in there and to call 911 when the time is ready.
Do you think that this is something that a state law could be used to give more access to police to properties where they believe there might be an illegal weapon?
No, I want to answer the question that you asked earlier. And I think that people are afraid to call the cops in my community. Being born and raised there, it was a stigma about calling the cops, getting people involved, scared of retaliation, all of these serious concerns that residents have that need to be taken into consideration. So what I've done as an elected official is try to be a buffer between law enforcement as well as the complainant to be able to say, hey, I'll protect you in your identity and report this anonymously and try to get it done, which we've tried to help in multiple occasions. But one of the things that I would love to see is having more anonymous ways to report these type of criminal activities so that people are not afraid to do it.
Another question, going back to an original point that you both made about transportation. Raymond says, we've been asking for an evacuation roads for years, even decades. What can you do at the state level to finally get something done? Samantha?
Yeah, I've been an advocate for opening up Pa'akea Road. The chair previous to me of Nanakuli Maʻili Neighborhood Board, that community has been advocating to open up Pa'akea Road.
So where does Pa'akea Road, does that go all the way up to Schofield Barracks?
No, that's Kole Kole Pass.
Okay.
Right. So Pa'akea Road is just another access road to kind of relieve the traffic. It's not going to answer all traffic problems, but
it's the road that runs kind of all the way back from Nanakuli all the way to like Waiʻanae, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's like behind the mountains. Okay, just so, because most people aren't that familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. But our residents are very familiar, and any way that we can relieve the traffic, we should. And so that can be the first step, and we did get funding for that. We do have a commitment from Department of Transportation to open that up in 2025. So I'm hopeful, and I will say that was definitely efforts made from a neighborhood board that was even before my time, as well as the representatives of Nanakuli Maʻili.
Yeah, things don't happen fast. What are you thinking the biggest transportation complaints you hear, and what do you think needs to be done?
As you know, Daryl, I've ran my election in 2016 on a strictly transportation platform of trying to build out a new route for our community. That's what the people sent me in for. So in 2017, we secured funding to build that new road. And what happened was that we went to the Nanakuli Neighborhood Board, and they actually shot down the plan that was created by DHHL and DOT to actually build out evacuation routes from Nanakuli Valley to Hakimo Road, Pa'akea. And that stopped the progression and momentum, but we've been able to secure some more funding to actually pick back up where we left off, which is opening up the Pa'akea to Lualualei naval route for daily use, which is something I've spearheaded since getting elected.
Can I ask both of you, one thing as a person, I live near the district but not in it, and so I like driving up the coast, but it takes forever to get anywhere because there's so many lights, the road is so narrow, there's so many left turns, pedestrians, whereas out in Hawaii, Kalaniʻanaʻole Highway is nicely developed. It's got, I mean, is that something that people want? A nice, big, wider highway for the one they use every day?
Well, I'll tell you what we don't want is we don't want to spend 2 hours coming home from work. We don't want to spend 2 hours going to work. It's important that our families make it home in time to spend time with their families. And so to say that it's not a community initiative is definitely not accurate. But we do not just for convenience, but we need it for safety. We're one way in, one way out. We are in threat of, wildfires, and if something breaks out, we're stuck, we're trapped in.
Floods, tsunamis, it's all right there.
Exactly.
Is there momentum to really improve Farrington Highway?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Department of Transportation, Ed Sniffen. He has really come to our community with an open mind and open heart to help us push through projects. One exciting project that's coming to our coastline is extending the 5th lane or the left turning lane on Farrington Highway from Haleakala to Mohihi Street. And that's a project we've been working on for quite some time. And one thing you'll learn about government quickly when you get in is that it takes a long time to get things done. But it takes persistence to see these projects through, and that's what we're seeing at the end of the day, the product of our labor.
I appreciate both of you guys moving along with these issues because there's a lot. Here's one that's more of a statewide issue we've been talking a lot about very specifically, but and I know Cedric Gates, you were a big advocate of the legalization of recreational marijuana. How do you guys feel about that? A question came via YouTube. Is it true that a bill could be passed to legalize marijuana on the west side? I don't know that you could do it on just one side. Maybe it'd make people happier, but I would ask you, because we know that Cedric Gates is an advocate. How do you feel about the effort to legalize recreational marijuana?
Well, that's just not something our community needs right now. We're dealing with a lot of issues. We're dealing with a lot of crimes. Although there could be some sort of a profitable incentive, I'm more so concerned about making sure that our community stays safe. And so it's something that was very much discussed this past legislative session, but our community spoke up very strongly. They testified. They spent actually, I think, about 2.5 hours testifying in opposition of it. So regardless of how I personally feel about it, the community has spoken and they don't want it.
Cedric, how do you respond to that?
You know, with 70% of Hawaii being in support of legalization of cannabis, and as the agriculture chair for the state of Hawaii, it was on my table and my desk to actually deal with the issue. So what I tried to do is make a comprehensive bill that would cover all bases, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's getting the black market to shrink, whether it's getting money to invest in our community. My community needs that money for roads, for schools, for all of these different projects that we could fund if we had additional revenue. And I'm tired of taxing our residents to death. And so how do we create revenue that alleviates those tax burdens? I think cannabis is one way, just one way. Agriculture in general, as you talk to these farmers, they're looking for a cash crop because they're barely surviving, just feeding us lettuce, tomatoes, and onions. So we have to think about how do we allow these people to succeed in their endeavors and in the investments they're making to feed our Hawaii.
Very brief last word, then I'm going to have one more question because we've only got like 2 minutes left. So.
Go ahead, move on to the next question.
So, yeah, what I think we've talked a lot about problems and solving problems, but I think that what's the positive vision that either of you, both of you have? Like, what is good, what does Waiʻanae look like in 20 years if you're elected? Let me start with you, Representative Gates.
For me, I want to create a thriving community that we can all be proud of to be from. You know, Waiʻanae has this stigma that we've been trying to shake for decades, and it burdens our next generation. And what my goal is to make sure that they have the resources, our community has the services, and that we don't feel neglected no more by government. And that's what I've tried to do with my time in office, is to show I care about our community. And through all of the efforts, whether it's funding over $250 million, or passing legislation every year, or rising to power to be able to
give Samantha a chance.
things
You
done.
got about 35, 40 seconds.
I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to give you a 20-year vision because I'm not looking at making a career out of this. But what I will say is I ran for office is because I saw that our community is being neglected. We're not getting the resources that we need, and that's visibly evident by the roadways, the landfills, I mean, just everything that you see in our community that you don't see in other communities. And as you had mentioned, when I ran in 2022, I came 40 votes away from a 20-year incumbent. So it just goes to show that Waiʻanae is ready for new leadership, strong leadership, leadership that will get things done, leadership that are about action and just the end result.
Okay, well, thank you, both of you. And so I want to thank both of our guests, like I just did a second ago. Representative Cedric Gates and Samantha DeCorte, Republican candidate, Cedric the Democrat. Thank you, both of you, for moving quite quickly through lots of issues.
Yes, it was fun. Speed round.
Now, as we get ready for our discussion with the candidates for State House District 45, here's an award-winning story from the student journalists at Waiʻanae Intermediate School.
If you ever walked around the campus of Waiʻanae Intermediate School, one thing you would notice are the many security cameras all over campus.
Right now we have approximately 110 security cameras, and we're going to be adding just a few more cameras probably in the next 2 months or so.
Security cameras were installed because we have an open campus and a need for increased security.
It is very effective because when the admin asks to see anything on the cameras or anything that happened on campus, we can go back and see it, check it out, make sure that everything's, okay.
I do believe that having cameras on campus has decreased the level of vandalism or the amount of vandalism on campus, but it has definitely increased our ability to hold people accountable for and responsible for the actions that they've committed on campus.
And I think it's pretty good that we have them on campus because there's a lot of drama that goes on, and they actually help catch different problems in the school.
One of the problems that the cameras are helping with is the issues of students vaping on campus.
We do notice in the very beginning of the year when students were unaware of the sensors, we actually caught quite a few students, unfortunately, who decided to bring vapes to school. Since then, and since word has gotten out, we've seen a drastic decline in that, and we get notified within 20 seconds, and along with the cameras, it really basically, it's a deterrent from students using those products at school, so that students don't feel pressure to perhaps use it, and also just make better choices while they're in school. So we feel it's been effective.
Some of our students did not feel comfortable having people vaping in the stalls next to them. The sensors were installed to address this problem.
Students our age, or just children in general, shouldn't have those kinds of toxic chemicals in their bodies.
So I do believe that having cameras and sensors on campus has increased the safety and security of the students here at Waiʻanae Intermediate School. And it allows us to hold people accountable for what their actions are. I think it's super important to have additional layers of security.
The cameras and sensors are a sign of the times of how Waiʻanae Intermediate School is making necessary adjustments to keep its students and staff safe.
Yeah, I feel very safe with these sensors and cameras because I know that they are taking priority to our lives and that they are trying their best to make sure that the school is a safe place.
This is Tabella Chanthacum from Waiʻanae Intermediate School for Hiki No.
Welcome back to Insights on PBS Hawaii. House District 45 includes the communities of Waiʻanae and Mākaha. The current representative, Cedric Gates, is running for state senate, which means there will be a new face in the State House of Representatives. Let's meet those hopefuls. Desire Auguste DeSoto is the Democrat candidate for State House District 45. She's a lifelong resident of Mākaha. She has worked as a teacher and school counselor at Waiʻanae High School. And Chris Muraoka is the Republican candidate for State House District 45. He was born and raised in Waiʻanae. He is a Navy veteran, the owner of Sure Can LLC, and a proud father and grandfather. And I'd like to give both of you the opportunity that I did with the Senate candidates to just say a quick word to your district about what's transpired the last weekend. It's impossible to do a show about the West Side without talking about that a little bit. Let me start with you, Chris Muraoka. What would you say to folks coming out of this terrible issue?
Well, before I make any mention of that, you know, as you mentioned, I'm a father. Before anything else, I'm a father, and I would feel terrible if I didn't say happy birthday to my youngest daughter, who makes 19 years old today. So, Kelsey, happy birthday! I love you. Now, in regards to this terrible, terrible tragedy, I don't have very much to say right now. I would rather the families have their time to heal. These are two prominent families that have been in Waiʻanae forever. They're both very good, solid societies, members of our society in Waiʻanae. So I think we owe it to them right now to just let them heal. Investigations and stuff will happen, and when more facts and truths come out, then we can address that at that time.
Desire DeSoto, you mind if I just say Desire DeSoto?
Yes,
okay. Your thoughts. What would you say to the folks of your district about what happened?
Again, it's a terrible tragedy. I think the word tragedy is definitely befitting of this. And there is a collective sadness in our community now. I'm hoping that this is the end, that this is the pinnacle and it's done. And this is, you know, that there'll be a calm, a time of peace now after this. It almost feels like it felt when we had the Lahaina fires, that this is that collective sadness in our community right now. These families both touch a lot of other community members as well. So there is a collective sadness, and I really hope that there's a collective reflection on where we are as a community, you know, and like that we look at our own actions, each and every one of us, and that we all just be a little bit kinder, have a little bit more love and aloha for one another through these difficult times. And I really, really pray that the worst is behind us, and that is the worst.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Well said. No, the reason I was moving along is that we've got about 20 minutes, and we're going to go through a lot of issues. But I would also, though, as you mentioned with the Lahaina fire, and I had experience covering that as well, sometimes these big events, these sad events, expose a lot of challenges in the community. Chris Muraoka, I saw you on the neighborhood board the other day asking DPP about these things. What do you think can we learn from what happened and, you know, go look at what happened and learn and do things better?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. And like you said, as a member of the community board, the neighborhood community board, without diving into specifics of what happened, I think there's a lot of stuff. And I asked our HPD spokesman that shows up, I said, you know, when we have complaints like this between neighbors and arguments, the police are called, and all they do is defuse the situation currently on hand. And I asked, why can't we have some type of liaison that follows up? You know, this isn't the first time we've had a situation like this. I pray to Jesus that it is the last.
To follow up with that, because that's a very interesting point, because I think what we've learned is that, yeah, when the police come, they're not trained to see building violations, and a lot of times these neighborhood disputes have to do with completely other agencies.
Absolutely, and that's why if we had a liaison that came out and followed up on the complaint, if two neighbors are arguing, there's a reason they're arguing. It could be something as simple as, you know, a ball keeps going in their yard, breaking a cherished plant, or it could be something serious that this neighbor thinks he's correct, this neighbor thinks he's correct. If we had someone who came out, a liaison who came out and actually got involved and talk to the neighbors and help them out, it could diffuse a lot of these situations.
Your thoughts about that, and also what do you think the issues that were exposed perhaps by this shooting or even all the other shootings?
So it's kind of ironic because 2 weeks ago I was in Georgia, in Atlanta, for the National Association of Community Health Centers. And I saw a program there that truly inspired me that's being piloted in Stockton, California. And it's a mobile community outreach team made up of a community member, a mental health professional, and a social worker that is enacted by HPD. 911 will call and they will come with their assessments, with their knowledge. And a lot of times I find as a mental health person myself, as somebody trained, I can diffuse a situation a lot easier with kindness and listening, you know, rather than force and challenging someone. So what I loved about this pilot program that's very successful in Stockton, they're actually having better recruitment and retention with their police officers because they're working in conjunction with mental health professionals and social workers, and they follow you for 30 days after that first visit. So they wrap around services for 30 days, they'll follow you. And then they also are building relationships with the people, so the people are now calling them directly for help instead of bothering 911.
You know, that's an interesting point, but it also takes resources, right? I mean,
yes.
So as legislators, I'd like to ask Chris as well, what do you feel is the key to getting enough resources into this community?
Good leaders. Good community leaders that's going to fight, and fight bitterly if we have to, but we cannot accept less. Look at where we're at. We've been in a continuous, steady decline. You know, a lot of the problem out there right now, as you drive into Nanakuli, you come over Black Rocks in Nanakuli, we once had the most beautiful coastline in all of the islands. We once had the most beautiful coastline. Now you make that drive into Nanakuli, and the deeper you get, Darryl, you were out there 3 times this week. I'm sure you can agree with me on that. It's demoralizing. It really is demoralizing. It sucks the wind out of you. It sucks the love, the aloha.
You're talking about
to
the
see
number
all of the homeless and just the absolute filth. You know, out there in Waiʻanae, you talk about resources. Miley Beach, there's been a pile of trash bags, 6 foot tall, 30 foot around, for over a month. Now people have to apply for a camping permit to go do this. And, you know, why can't we have the resources to clean it up? Is it because we're Waiʻanae? We're tired of being swept to the bottom. We're tired of being pushed to the side. We need the resources. We need a good leader who's going to fight for the resources that we deserve.
What do you think about the resource issue? I mean, the program you just described sounds very intensive. What argument would you make to the legislature that maybe something has to be taken away from some other district and put into Waiʻanae?
Well, I feel like if you're going to put all these the homelessness and we're going to take societies or Oahu's tough situations and house them in Waiʻanae, we deserve the resources to cope with them and to help our community deal with that. And I feel like I'm a good advocate. I've been advocating for students for a long time. For the last 26 years, I've been at Waiʻanae High, and the last 2 I was at Waiʻanae L. And so I feel like that's what we need. We need a good advocate that comes with numbers. You know, we have to really look. I feel like the numbers will tell the story in and of itself. For example, when I looked at the homeless count, I'm a career educator, so I'm looking at this homeless report, and I noticed that when we stopped giving out COVID money, that's when we had this doubling in our homelessness. So working in the schools, I always feel like it's a microcosm of our community, and I can feel the ebb and flow of what's going on in our community through the school. And since we stopped giving that COVID relief money, there's definitely been an increase in crime, homelessness. People lost that source of income. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Now, if I may, let me just tag along. I disagree with Desiree on a small part of what she said. and quite frankly, it's this. We don't want nobody else's problems out there. We need to stop importing non-residents. A lot of the homeless out there aren't even from there. We are Waiʻanae. We need to take care of Waiʻanae. We need to heal, and it starts by taking care of our own people first.
How do you do that, though?
Simple. I really believe if you walk on a beach, as I have, as many people have, the homeless people are not afraid to tell you where they're from. And once we identify that, we need to send them back. And once we get rid of everybody else's problems, whether it be out of zip code or out of state, once we get rid of those problems, we can then focus on our own. Now, when we focus on our own, we can decide if they're substance abusers, if they're mental health, and or if they're the true working poor. And those are the people we need to focus. Those are the resources we need to help our own people.
Okay, let me move on to a question from a viewer, which is right on this topic. I'll just read this because I'm not sure how to parse it out in a simple way. Kapua in Waiʻanae sent in this question. While the state is wanting to put transitional housing, houseless people in kauhale units out here, I've seen other proposals for affordable housing in other districts like Pearl City. Why is it that Waiʻanae often gets looked at to take up more houseless people, but not build it up to make it a nicer community? Where's the parity? Is that a fair description of the situation, do you think?
I can see what Auntie Kapua is saying. We do need more. I feel like they're going to do it no matter what. Like, when do we really have a say? I'm not used to having a say in these things. They
going
just
to do what?
happen.
Sorry.
Put kauhale in our neighborhood,
Okay.
or build homeless shelters like next to our intermediate school. Like, these kinds of things just kind of come up overnight and read, or at least for me, working in the schools, I don't know what's going on. I just see it at the last minute when it pops up. However, I feel like I'm in a place where it's time that I advocate for resources for our community. You know, with these things that come, we definitely need pathways to hope and opportunity for the homelessness, for the houseless, even our own residents. We need these pathways to middle class, and I do not see them right now. So even if we are to sweep the beaches, where are these pathways for these people?
Is there affordable housing? It's not affordable in your coast either.
Yeah. So let me touch on the kauhale before I get onto the affordable housing. So with the whole kauhale program, if you go on YouTube, you can see this past 2 neighborhood boards, and you'll see my stance on it. And it's this: people of Waiʻanae, we're not against the mission. We're really not against the mission of helping people. We're just against the location. And I just got into a little back and forth with Mr. Mizuno, who was at our neighborhood board this past Tuesday. And I explained that to him.
The state homeless coordinator, yeah.
Correct. You know, I explained to him that they're claiming they have the emergency proclamation. And I asked him, doesn't that same emergency proclamation work in other zip codes? Why don't you build Waiʻanae's kauhale last? Go build one in Kaneohe or Kailua or elsewhere. Go build elsewhere, and then take the people that belong elsewhere, not from our community, there. And then when you build Waiʻanae's kauhale, maybe we can pray that that kauhale or whatever that village is can house our people. Let me get on your affordable housing. Sorry, there.
Okay. I was going to say, make sure we do finish on affordable housing.
So affordable housing, I really feel like we need to take a big look at that. Why is our affordable housing numbers dictated by the federal consensus? Why we need to look at Hawaii?
You're talking about Hawaiian homelands.
Yes, well, everything, affordable homes in that term. We need to look at Hawaii's income, what Hawaii's blue-collar worker makes.
Oh, I see.
And then we need to actually decide what is affordable housing. Because a $600,000 home is not affordable.
What are your feelings about affordable housing? How do you get affordable housing into the district?
It's just so, well, I'm telling you, the crime rate is definitely driving down our property values. Like, I subscribe to Redfin, and everything is price decrease, price decrease, price decrease. So with the shootings, definitely the prices of our houses have gone down in Waiʻanae.
Well, you know, I wanted, another question came in from a viewer, Talum. Can we talk about the positives of the Waiʻanae Coast? There are negatives, yes, and change is needed, but the people are wonderful. How do we get the positive news out there? How do you, let me start with you, Desiree, and I'll give Chris Muraoka a chance to this. How do you message out that it's not as bad as it sounds?
So sometimes we blame the media a little bit, Daryl.
Okay,
I'm gonna just have to say
guilty.
that because there are a lot of beautiful things. There are a lot of beautiful people doing a lot of wonderful things. I'm gonna ask the media that. Why can't we? Look at how much coverage we've got for our tragedies, but there are a lot of beautiful, wonderful things going on. And then you kind of brainwash my younger kids to believe that this is, but it's a stereotype that has followed us since we were young, right, Chris? So we've been dealing with this stereotype
since
for a long time. So I talked to my Kamehameha friends about this. They get to say that they went to Kamehameha when they go in for an interview and they find that the doors open, the gates to heaven open for them. You tell somebody you graduated from Waiʻanae and you can see them put their purse on the side or treat you a little bit different. I've seen it happen many times. So I'd like to kahea out to the media to please start covering beautiful things that are happening in our community.
Chris, your thoughts about that?
So, really quickly, I'd like to repeat that sentiment. The media does portray Waiʻanae as just this awful place. And the way we counter that, the way we fix that, is by telling people, come out and visit. Waiʻanae has the best people in all of the world. I want to just make that clear. The compassion, the caring, the love that is out there in Waiʻanae is untouchable. The people out there are truly the best. We have so little, but we are willing to give all of it if somebody else is in need. Okay? If our people are in need, we'll be willing to give it. But again, the only way we can do that is by helping ourselves. You go to the doctor if you get hurt on your knee and they'll tell you to heal. You gotta heal. As a community, as an area, as a people out there in Waiʻanae, we gotta heal. We gotta take care of ourselves first, and then we can open up that beautiful flower that we are and welcome the world.
I mean, it's not just a PR issue, right? I mean, it's also, there are significant challenges in that district, as we talked about earlier, partly because the resources don't seem to be there for a lot of the things that other places have. I mean, is Waiʻanae treated unfairly? Let me just finish with Chris on that. But is Waiʻanae treated unfairly because of for whatever reason? Do you think it's fair the way Waiʻanae has been treated?
Well, you look at the Native Hawaiian population in Waiʻanae too. So I don't know the word fair. Life has never been fair to me from the day that I was born. Injustices were being called out. So I don't know that things are fair or they will ever be fair. But when you're looking at colonized people, let's not forget what happened to Native Hawaiians here in these islands and the illegal overthrow and the taking of our lands and putting us in the driest corners. And we've made our homes there.
Well, they usually took the water away too.
Yeah. So there, I mean, we can go on and on.
Right.
But I feel like we're good at taking the lemons and making lemonade, though.
Okay. I want to just jump onto another topic here because this is very important.
Well, let me really quick. I'll make this really quick because you asked about fair. So I've called several different times. I made point earlier about the pile of rubbish bags in Miley Beach, across the sewer plant in Waiʻanae, across the city refuse yard in Waiʻanae. Pile of. Now, albeit it may be from the homeless, this, that, or other, but it's in a separate area piled up that people drive past.
It's like a campsite. It's sitting on a campsite.
Well, I'm not talking about the campsites. I'm talking about the piles of bagged rubbish that sits there, like I said, for over a month. You talk about resources. You talk about being treated fairly. You think that would happen in Hawaii Kai, Kailua, Kaneohe, Kahala? You think that would happen? The answer is no. Secondly, I've personally called about the stripes on those humps that they put. I personally...
Sniffing bumps?
It's sniffing bumps, absolutely. I've personally called, if you go to Waiʻanae by the old Pizza Hut, in December of 2023, a Nissan Frontier rammed through that railing. I've called several times. I've held signs there for our campaign. That railing is still sitting on the ground, trashed, bang. There's no safety. Now you think, again, if we were in some other zip code, it would be like that? So when you talk about fair, yes, Waiʻanae is treated unfair.
Okay. She's just nodding in her approval, and so I'm going to just move on here. Schools, I'll let you do this first. As an educator, what would make the schools better? Are the schools just as good as all the other schools, but they have a bad reputation?
I feel like if we could retain our teachers, there's that, and I personally, what got me to run for office is the lack of resources in the elementary level. I feel like it's lacking tremendously. And in defense of DOE, it's hard for DOE to get certified counselors, you know, certified teachers, and then retain them on our coast. We already give them stipends. We give special ed teachers stipends. And now, you know, with all the violence too, our teachers are on the front lines a lot of times. And then they hear things, but...
I mean, but what would you, how would you as a legislator try and get those resources to where they're needed?
I would definitely advocate for a school counseling, a quicker, easier, cheaper way for people to get school counseling certifications, because I think that kids need to talk to people more than us try to control them with rules and order. We need that too, of course, but kids also really need somebody to talk to. I mean, in all honesty, their parents need somebody to talk to as well too. I mean, everybody does.
Chris, what do you think are the challenges for the schools on the West?
So I have to agree with Desiree on that. We need to retain good quality teachers. You know, I'm a football coach. I'm a youth football coach as well as a parent. And our teachers spend just as much, if not more time with our kids. They are a huge influence. So now, Desiree and I, back in the green room, we were just talking about our teachers in elementary, and Miss Smith and Miss Sharkey, we agree we both had them. So when you retain teachers, the good quality teachers, they tend to learn our style, and then they can relate. You know, so retaining teachers need to be paid what they're worth, first of all, and that'll help us retain them. Teachers care, and when they care, they can let the parents know, they can let the teacher know. Again, it's the village mentality. It takes a village to raise a child.
I think one of the things that's happening, one initiative that is moving along is the more housing for teachers, specifically for teachers. I think you guys might agree that's a good idea, especially on that side, right? Okay, so I like this question from Ernest. Can we create more good-paying jobs in Waiʻanae so we don't have to spend a third of our day out driving to work? We seem to have a pattern that all the best jobs, paying jobs, are somewhere else. Whoever is elected will make part of the state government make it happen. Desiree, what do you see as opportunities to have better jobs, more jobs out there, and better paying jobs actually in the location?
It's true. We definitely, our economy is not that, you know, we're a labor community, right? We're used to doing labor and we have to commute, and that's gonna, part of me, I feel like we're gonna have to look at universal basic income kind of things, you know, for these kinds of situations, or tax credits. Maybe go back to agriculture. I personally would like to see us lean more into marine science. We've invested a lot into Sea Rider Productions. I would like to see an investment into now marine biology, marine science, that kind of, and I feel like through that avenue we could look towards agriculture and aquaculture, restorative aquaculture.
Your thoughts about creating jobs out there?
You know, as a business owner, you know, like you mentioned earlier, I own SureCan LLC.
What is that anyway?
So we're a multifaceted service company. We have janitors, landscapers, we have welders, we have trucking division. You know, we do a wide range of different services. And I say that to say this: of the 44 full-time employees I have, 36 of them are from our community.
How do you get other companies to come out and do work? And yours is mostly blue-collar type jobs. What about higher-paying jobs?
Well, really, out there in Waiʻanae, we got to build the economy. You know, it's like the Field of Dreams, right? We have to build it, then they'll come. Okay,
another question that I got here. Transportation keeps coming up. You mentioned the condition of the roads. What needs to happen with the transportation system out there to make life a little bit more pleasant?
Well, we need to start again with resources. You know, we have this, what's being termed as the emergency bypass road. I want to remove that whole emergency part of it. It's just a bypass road.
Another road.
It's just another road to alleviate traffic. It's a Band-Aid at best, in my opinion. Now, as a lifelong member, I've lived through 2 hurricanes, Hurricane Eva and Hurricane Iniki. And I can tell you this, Daryl, I am very familiar with Kolikoli Pass, as I am with Pa'akea Road. And in a case of a natural disaster, we're trapped. Pākea Road, there's a dip over there that's a natural waterway. It fills up sometimes 6, 8 feet deep. You can't get through there. You cannot get to Kolikoli Pass. Because like I said the last time I was here, Farrington Highway, the poles will be down. HECO does such a horrible job at maintaining their poles. Their poles are going to be laying across Farrington Highway. We're trapped. We really need the resources and the support to create another roadway somewhere in the mountains, and that'll take us from Kahi Point to Makua.
A whole nother roadway.
A whole nother road.
Okay.
But that road needs to only be an emergency, because we cannot open that road, because if we open that road, they're going to want to build homes on it.
Okay, I got to give you the last word on this. On transportation, what do you think is the solution to make life better for people getting in and out of the coast?
I'm going to go with the 4-day work week and keep them off the road, you know, keep families, because a lot of our families have to commute, you know, and when I look at how much time our parents are away from their children, you know, that's at least 3 hours a day of you spending time on the road that you could be with your children, doing after-school programs with them, helping them with schoolwork, and that's 15 hours a week at least. You know, the more we can get, I'm looking at keeping parents home more, you know, and how do we go back to having quality of life? How did we become so obsessed with money and more, and we forgot quality, and why we are here is really to enjoy one another and enjoy the beauty of Hawaii.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for your answers, both of you. Thanks for handling this very smoothly. We'd also like to thank you folks at home for joining us tonight, and we thank our guests, the candidates for State House District 45, Desire Auguste DeSoto, the Democrat, and Chris Muraoka, the Republican. Next week on Insights, we continue with our election 2024 coverage with 2 races. We'll hear from those looking to represent State House 42, which includes Kapolei and Makakilo, and the 2 men on the ballot for Hawaii County Mayor. Please join us then. I'm Daryl Huff for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha.